global question, as it were. What will reshape capital flows, do you think, over the next decade? Economics,
well,
geopolitics?
A lot of things. I think a lot of that, all those are factors. I mean, first of all, I always tell people, capital goes where capital's treated well. So where do you find capital treated well? Well, leadership you have transparent rules, they're consistent, you have government policy that's supportive of capital, and so then you say, okay, well, what from a cross-border standpoint, what are important? Geopolitics are important. You know, if you definitely see a divide in technology between the U.S. and China, and I don't know where that, you know, falls out. You're probably, from a technology standpoint, going to invest in both, and in the past, they probably worked together a bit more. Mm. On the other hand, U.S. needs China and China needs the U.S., so they'll always work together. But it'll be in various sectors, and it's going to be important. So I think geopolitics are important. Policy is very important. AI, technology. I mean, there's going to be some amazing breakthroughs. In my 30 plus years in this business, I have never experienced the kind of change to our business as I'm experiencing right now. And I think that goes across the board. Mm. And so those are going to be really important from an investment standpoint. I think so far, take AI, you know, the real investment opportunities have been what I've called the picks and shovels, right? These were the companies that were investing in cloud service providing. They were the energy producers and data centers. It was the NVIDIAs on the chips, the Microsofts on cloud servicing, AWS. That's the picks and shovels. The next step a lot of people talk about will be more of the infrastructure, but the real opportunity will be the companies who get AI right within a sector. And I think it is evolving so quickly that the companies who aren't investing in it appropriately today will be left behind. Yeah. And so you want to make sure that you're following those companies, seeing the advances that they're making, and I think that's going to be a real opportunity.
And maybe AI is probably a piece of the puzzle, but what infrastructure needs to exist for the next $1 trillion to flow? And also to flow more, I would say, with a conscience.
Well, so the infrastructure, I mean, we've all talked about all the data or all the energy and power that's required to support the initiatives on AI. Now, I have to just say that I was talking to somebody about this recently, and you know, anytime you make a 30-year commitment on some technology that exists today, you just wonder what disruption is going to happen down the road. And I have to just tell a quick story. Yeah. I was having this debate with another CEO about, you know, are the data centers overbuilt? Are they underbuilt? Are we going to need so much power? And we literally walked in a meeting. We were actually we were at FII in Saudi Arabia, so we were going to a dinner. And we walked in the room, and the first person we ended up talking to was somebody who was doing quantum computing.
Of course.
And I said, well, quantum computing, how realistically, how close is quantum computing? And he gave some, I think it was like 10 years or something. And I said, but what about all the energy that's required for quantum computing? And he said, oh, we use photonic silicon, and it doesn't need nearly the energy. Now, I don't know whether photonic silicon is going to matter or not, but I can tell you that there will be breakthroughs that will change whatever we think that energy consumption is required. And then, of course, the other side of this is, you know, the energy transition is so important. I mean, I think we all recognize that, you know, we're living on this earth, and climate change is real, and we want to do as little harm as we can. So we want to be, you know, as responsible as we can into whatever it is to be able to generate that energy that's needed for these technological advances.
That's why I asked to generate the $1 trillion, but to generate it more consciously, you know, with a conscience, with a look to the future and the future generations and what we are leaving them. So how are you using AI? How are you using that in the business? Is it mainly back office? Is it a co-investor with you now?
So we actually have a partnership with Microsoft. There we're building an application that's all about, I tell people it's a simple problem with a difficult technical solution. So the problem is, how do we ensure that our sales and service people are meeting with the right people and having the best conversations? That's kind of everybody's challenge. Sure. When it comes to salespeople. But it is actually a challenging technical solution, because you have to, you know, you want to go into your CRM system and review what you're talking to your clients about. You probably want to look at some product information system that's going to evaluate what's the best product to talk about. Maybe you want to look at social media, so you ensure you have some context as you're talking about to that client. And that requires you to pull together a lot of different AI models, both quantitative and large language models. And that's the kind of platform approach. So that's what we're building with Microsoft, and it's in the pilot phase. I think we have 41 users at this point. We're also doing some interesting things on the investment side. Now, the simple things are just summarize an earnings call, right? So give us a more efficiently summarizing an earnings call. You know, it's kind of the grunt work that the research analyst does. But actually what gets really interesting is we're building a kind of a research analyst where that is an AI analyst. And so you feed in your philosophy on investments. You actually have it learn from the investments that you've done and the models that you've done. And then as a portfolio manager is making a decision, it can challenge that portfolio manager. Well, you say you do this, and by the way, you're making this investment, but it's not consistent with what you've done, or it's not consistent with historical returns or whatever. So, you know, we're building that out in the investment side. And then to your point on sort of the back office, there's a lot of efficiencies that we're doing, RFP reports that we're generating, reconciliation, all these things that we're trying to reduce the costs. Because as I say in the asset management business, there's only one way fees go, and that's down. So we have to constantly be pushing ourselves to be more efficient.
So AI, of course, will deal with the numbers, will deal with the data. The human beings are still required for intuition. And I want to ask you about your intuition. And when you're looking at some numbers that conflict with intuition, what guides you? What philosophy guides you?
I think when you're looking at numbers that conflict with intuition, you dive deeper. That's what you do, right? Like, there's times, it's funny, in the CEO role, you tend to, obviously, you know, people think you're spending your whole day talking about strategy and meeting with clients and things, but every once in a while there's something that maybe isn't passing the smell test. And you got to dig deep, and you roll up your sleeves and you get into the details until such time as you feel comfortable with the answer, so that you are reconciling the intuition with the data.
And that works?
I think so.
Yeah.
It's helped me so far in my career.
Excellent. So let me ask you a personal question. As you said, you're third generation manager or CEO in this company. What was it like growing up in a family of overachievers?
Well,
and you're one of how many siblings?
One of seven.
One of
I'm
seven
number
siblings.
6 of 7.
Okay.
I actually, when I was pregnant with my 5th and final child, I said to my father, I'm pregnant with my 5th and final child, and without missing a beat, he said, what if your mother and I had stopped at 5?
Exactly.
My mother had 7 children and then went back to medical school and graduated from Stanford Medical School. My father obviously was building Franklin. He really